Okay, you're back here on 88.9 FM on the Saturday Sports Brief. Jeff Bastola and Robbie Shield with you. And Benny Goldfish doing a bit of production work behind the scenes today as we go into our podcast mode. Now, we've caught up with this bloke during the footy season on the call with a while to have a bit of a chat with him, but it's never long enough to really delve into what was a fantastic football career. Of course, played for 3 SNFL clubs, I think totaled, and then the VFL for South Melbourne back in the days, totaled up something like 283 games of senior football. Multiple goal kicker, in fact, holds the world record, which will never be broken, of the most goals ever kicked in a game, SNFL game at Football Park. Helps when they don't use it anymore. It's a bit like having the lap. It's a bit like having the lap time around the old Adelaide street circuit in a Grand Prix car, but they can't take it away from him, and it's an extreme pleasure to be joined here on Saturday Brief by John Roberts. John, thanks for joining us.
Oh, pleasure, Rob and Jeff. Glad to be here.
Now, this isn't a stitch-up, mate. It just so happens
There's always something in it, John.
We'll get to the first, I suppose, the elephant in the room you always get asked. It came up the other week, actually. Do you realise 45 years ago since that memorable day, July 16th, I think, 1977, when you kicked the 16 goals, and it actually come up on a Facebook site here, front page of the Sunday Mail, as it was then. We'll just move it a bit closer, so just have to have a spare copy of you, John. Now you remember that, John?
I have got a copy of that Sunday Mail.
Actually, it was on the front page of the Sunday Mail, so that's how important you were, mate.
That's right.
Can you just take us back to that day?
Well, yeah, I do remember it very well because I'd been playing full back and I went to the coach at the time, John McGuinness, and I mean, we were getting murdered every week and I wasn't enjoying the football. Anyways, look, I'll tell you what, we'll move into the forward line and try something different. So this was the second week at full forward and against Central, so it's against Billy Cochran, the state full back. Thought, geez, this is going to be a tough gig, and just everything I did worked. Like, you know, I was stumbling. I remember I was falling over trying to take a mark, and I still marked it even though I'd fallen over. Like, it was, everything happened, perfectly. Kicked 16-3, 2 out on the full.
16-3.
Yeah, unlike a Roberts to kick that straight. So,
and of course, there was a huge crowd there to see 2,700 people.
Well, it would be.
Because it was second bottom versus bottom, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. And funnily enough, as it says on the front page of the paper there, my dad at the time offered me $2 a goal as incentive to lift my spirits, and he ended up paying out $32. So
wow.
He wasn't all that happy after that.
He was spent it that night. Apparently, it said just in the write-up, John, that actually after the game, because the Packers didn't have that much success back in those days, and he actually cheered from the ground as if it was your 300th. And then held court back at the club rooms that night. So I suggested 32. Actually, could have bought a few schooners for $32 back in those days.
Yeah, probably would have shattered the whole bar for a couple of hours, I reckon.
Week's a long time in footy, because I remember reading somewhere you said the next week you played Glenelg, and actually Fred Phillips had been transferred into defence, and I think you kicked 1 goal. And there's actually the story you related. And this is quite amazing, it's a sign of the times right back then, that the Glenelg supporters were actually throwing 20-cent pieces at you to try and hit you in the back of the head just to fire you up. So in the end, you sort of stuck them all down your socks, so maybe you walked out with $32 in the sock. But throwing cords at people, that's something.
Yeah, the Glenelg cheer squad were throwing money at me. We were getting slaughtered down the road.
That's amazing.
And I wasn't anywhere near the ball. And I thought, well, baby, if you're going to keep throwing money at me, I'll pick it up myself and put it in my sleeve, put it in my sock, upset them like, so I stopped. Lo and behold, I've got a pocket full of 20-cent pieces, and the ball came down. I'm running along.
That's just amazing, that concept. It's just an era of footy, and like you look at the old footage and you see with the old streamers they used to have the pom-poms.
Yeah.
Because that's all gone, because there was a fire one day at Unley Oval.
Ah, yeah, I remember that.
Set fire and the banner went up and everything. So all that sort of stuff. It was a different era of footy, John, isn't it?
It was, and I actually can make claim that I was a member of the Woodville cheer squad. And we used to saw up the bandsaw the newspaper and throw it up like confetti, make a hell of a mess of the oval. Wow. So yeah, different
just
times.
take us back, pre-league, to how you actually came to play league football at Woodville. As you said, where'd you grow up, and you're back for Woodville, obviously?
Well, as a kid, the whole family mad Port Adelaide. We lived at Hahndorf, and when I was about 5, we moved to Findon, which was in the Woodville area, but I still barracked for Port till about the age of 13. And then the mate I went to high school with lived right next to Woodville Oval, and I ended up following Woodville and ended up in the cheer squad and went through the junior ranks and then played on to league football.
Does it sort of get you, the fact that, okay, Woodville didn't have the great success, but you went on to individually play some pretty good football, and then obviously premierships later on went off. But gee, a street over, you've been playing for Port, and just think the era that they had back in the SNFL would have been, you could have been part of that.
Well, that's true, yeah. Well, could have been, should have been, would have been. Plenty of people like that. I mean, we had some great players just in that Woodville area, and in my under-17s team we had Phil Malin as well.
Yes,
so,
right.
yeah, there was a lot of great football sort of wedged and we were between West Torrens and Port Adelaide, and the older folks will argue that if Woodville hadn't come about, West Torrens and probably Port Adelaide would have even been better. So,
yeah, I have heard that suggestion that they bought Woodville in, which probably the weakened Port Adelaide because they were such a pair, but it had the opposite effect for West Torrens because they were sort of a bit of a powerhouse Torrens back in the day, if you recall, like 63 and around that era, Lindsay Head and those guys. But after that, it was a downward spiral for the Eagles, wasn't it?
yeah, so the poor old Eagles, they just seemed to run out of money. I mean, when I was there, they were always calling half-match payments halfway through the season, and we got no money. And
Wow.
yeah, so it was sad time really. I mean, fair bit of history at that club, and they just couldn't get their finances together and ended up, amalgamating with Woodville, which, funnily enough, was quite a financial club.
Really?
And they.
Because Bill Sanders was the crazy.
Yeah. Well, he orchestrated the amalgamation, but Woodville was actually quite financial. They had a very successful bingo at the time. You know, used to make a lot of money, and they had the old Pecker's Disco, which I'm sure you would have got to. Off season, it was
I'm sure you would have been there, John.
I was there.
Hey, just interesting here, a bit of a footnote here, John, because Rick Davies' sister is in this photo.
Yep.
So, has any thoughts you might have been going to Sturt?
I wish I had have when I was playing full back, but great mates of mine through the under-17s, and York Peninsula was Woodville's country zone with the 12 Tree brothers, Bruce and Leon, and I used to go to York Peninsula every second weekend, and it just so happened that the Davies farm was next door.
Urania?
And I took a shine to Joe and Joanne, and we went out for 18 months or so.
Wow.
Well, history.
All right, the move about 1980, I think, if I'm right,
Yep.
to go across to play for South Melbourne. How did that come about?
Well, I ended up as a ruck rover, follower these days. In 1979, I won the best and fairest, so I've attracted some attention from St Kilda and South Melbourne, they were called then, and Woodville weren't very keen to pay any money to anyone. That's probably why they had plenty of money. Anyway, there's a story to this. I don't know whether I should tell it, but with South Melbourne, they said, look, if you sign and come over, we're going on a pre-season trip to Bali. I said, geez, I've never been overseas. This will be all right. So I signed, and off we went to Bali. So
That was pre-season?
That was pre-season 1980, in January 1980, and you wouldn't get away with it these days.
No, well, there you go. Woodville were ahead of their time. South Melbourne were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
Poor old Jordan De Goe, he goes there for mid-season training.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's a memorable story. You actually won the game in your first appearance for South Melbourne, wasn't it? Against
Yeah. So
Yes, the Cats.
Against your
Park.
Rob's a Cats man.
Yeah, Cardinia Park, first game, and pace was a lot quicker than the practice games, and it was a bit heavy in the legs in the first half, and the Swans were well behind, but we started to pull our way back into the game, and anyway, ball was skied up into the forward line late in the game, and I just ran back and marked it, and siren sounded. All these people run onto the oval, including 2 police horses, and decided the police horse sounded the mark anyway.
They used to do that in the old days.
Yeah, they did.
Anyway, I wobbled it through when we got the goal, so got the win.
So you kicked the goal after the siren to win the game?
Yep. Only 4 people in history have done that. in their first game.
Who stood you that day?
Sam Newman.
Really?
Yeah.
Sam Newman.
With his white boots?
That was his last year. He was in the back
Yeah,
pocket.
yeah,
So I was
yeah,
in the forward pocket. The whole idea of me going to South Melbourne was to be a marking forward pocket.
Yeah.
And Tony Morgan was going to be the full forward.
Yeah.
And of course I ended up being the full forward.
Because a lot of people don't know, Sammy, the old saying, your last spot in before you get booted out is
Yeah.
pocket.
Yeah.
Well, I think he played.
A lot of people don't realise.
I think he played his 300 on the bench actually in the dressing room.
Yeah.
Hey, South Melbourne, so coach Ian Stewart and then Ricky Quaid, is that right?
Yeah, so first 2 years was Ian Stewart, and in the third year Ricky Quaid when we became the Sydney Swans.
So how was Ian Stewart? He seems like a sort of interesting coach.
He is an interesting cat. Yes, but he was a good coach. I liked playing under him. He was, but yeah, he had a few little erratic things go on in his life. But
You must have made an impact in your first year, John, because you actually picked up 5 Brownlow medal votes. You only did 6 in your career, but you picked up 5 one season. What, you kicked 67 goals? 22 games your first year, so.
I kicked a couple of 7s, and one was against North Melbourne. I reckon I would have got votes there. Well, we went down by 3 points, and it was low scoring. And maybe against.
I don't. Obviously, they didn't have it back in those days, Robbo. But
What's
the NAB Rising Star Award, like first year player, you might have been a Monty for that.
Yeah, it might have been a chance. Phil Malin probably would have picked me to the post there because we both went over the same year. So.
Hey, just look at some of the names on the list then, because the old Rod Carter, old Tilt at full back, Graham Teasdale, because before Collingwood poached him very successfully. Robbie McGee, Barry Round, Stevie Wright, Maxie Cruz, David Rees-Jones, the hyphen, Neville Fields, Mark Browning, Tony and Paul Morwood and Wayne Carroll. So some very good names of the South Melbourne Football Club there.
Indeed, yeah, we had a good side, just couldn't quite get there. You know, we just finished outside the 5. We finished 6th, 7th, missed lose a crucial game, then didn't play in finals.
You're on the Saturday morning sports brief here on 88.9 FM. Jeff Bastow and Rob Sherwood, and we've been lucky enough to be joined by John Roberts talking about his illustrious career. Hey, John, you're an era of that football VFL as it still was then. It's a bit more sanitised these days as far as venues. All the games are centred at one venue. We're back in the day, as you mentioned, like Arden Street, the old lakeside ground, unfortunately at South Melbourne, no longer used at that standard. So it must have been, and Moorabbin, of course, going down there in front of the animal cage. It must have, of course, Victoria Park, which we must have loved going to. Just give us a few insights into that.
Well, you mentioned Moorabbin, and when I went to Melbourne, I was based my game around marking, really. So I didn't really like the wet weather. So we're playing St Kilda, and it was wet.
Yes.
And I was that worried. I went to look at the oval on the Friday, and the bloody sprinklers were on.
That used to happen regularly down there.
Yeah, so,
and Carlton will tell you that.
So,
Hey, and also the aspect, like as we said, you kicked 16 goals, a world record at Footy Park, 2,700 people there. And of course, the fanaticism when you go to VFL, and they said all those games, those suburban ovals, the crowds would have been huge, and you'd think, what's going on here,
Yeah, well, we won our first 2 games, Geelong and then St Kilda, and then the third game was against Essendon at Waverley. And they had a big following, and of course, Swans have won their first 2 games, so the Swans were coming out the woodwork, and I reckon it was 50,000 at Waverley. And I think my biggest crowd was when we played Port Adelaide at Alberton. I think that was 12,000. So, a big difference in every game. I mean, the Swans probably get about 20,000 to their games. Yeah.
So then you're part of the transition, about 82, when they decided to play a few games, home games, was it, up in Sydney?
Yeah, so the start of the AFL as we know it today was in 82 when South Melbourne became the Sydney Swans, and we didn't relocate to Sydney till the next year, but in 82 we would play every second game in Sydney on a Sunday. We'd fly up in the morning, play the game, have a bit of a function afterwards, rub shoulders with the elite in Sydney. They had all the big names. Stay in King's Cross on the Sunday night, which wasn't a great idea. And then come home on the Monday.
Or do you remember coming home on the Monday?
We're probably asleep, most of us. Yeah, fun times.
Hey,
so was that Eccleston and
No,
all?
no.
that was
before
a bit
that.
before him, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we talk about the old South Melbourne club. Now, doing a bit of research, as we like to do on the sports brief. Now, some of the people associated with South Melbourne, John, and you got to rub shoulders, you said, with some rich and famous, like Bill Collins, the accurate one.
Yep.
The late Bill Collins, the right, Kingston Town can't win. He was the president of South Melbourne Footy Club. Bob Hawke was the #1 ticket holder. And then, as you mentioned, John, when you went to Sydney, the #1 ticket holder up the Sydney side of things was Lady Mary Fairfax of the Media Empire. And she used to host a few, what would you say, garden parties, Robbo? Out of
Well, yeah, after the first game, we had a function back at her mansion. And I'm not quite sure what it was. Yeah, something like that. But they drained the swimming pool and filled it with balloons and had all this.
They filled it with ice.
All these orders and rich and famous people there. And
Wow.
they sort of kept the players away from some of it.
Yeah.
But I reckon Max Cruz picked up a pig on the way out and put it under his arm. You were like you were pioneers because, as you said, playing in Melbourne where footy's like a religion, and then you go to Sydney and where rugby league was actually the stronghold. So how hard was it, and particularly the crowds, because it's a new sort of game for them in Sydney at that stage? Yeah, I think we were probably getting about 15,000 people to a game, and most of those people had come up from AFL states, southern states. So there weren't many people that came along for the experience, I suppose, or they might have come for just to have a look. But generally, they were from southern states, and they'd come up, and the Richmond supporters in Melbourne, and they lived in Sydney now.
Yeah,
Richmond playing, they'd come, and we got a bit of a following. But it took I was only there the 1 year as the Sydney Swans, and we didn't make great inroads at that stage. I mean, we used to do coaching clinics all the time with the kids and that, but it's like going and trying to teach kids at the blind school how to take a mark. It wasn't they had no idea.
Yeah, they knew how to strike, rugby stuff. Hey, and am I right in saying that you actually won your first game when you moved up there? Beat Melbourne?
Yeah,
Rob Barassi was coaching?
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure. We were really on edge, and we won it. It was tight last quarter, and we pulled away right at the end. I reckon we won by about 3 or 4 goals, maybe.
So all the new convertees and Lady Fairfax, they were thinking, how good's this mob? Have they put in a second swimming pool?
Well, I do remember after the game, there's Sir James Hardy, and there's Mike Willersley, and there's Johnny Farnham, and Glenn Shorrock came up, and he was chatting away to me, and I thought that was pretty cool. So
how many games did you win in the first year?
I reckon we would have won about 8.
Yeah.
At a guess, 8 or 9.
Majority of them up there?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
So then, as you said, in '83, the move is made, they're going to go up there permanently. So when did you guys get a hankering that was going to happen? During '82?
Yeah, towards the end of the season, so we're moving up to Sydney to live in '83. And I said, well, I've moved Adelaide to Melbourne. I'm not going to move Melbourne to Sydney. I'm going home. And Woodville had been making overtures. I didn't know that Mac and Block was coming back as well. Yeah. At the time, anyway, that I signed. And I came back home.
I remember you telling me also Maxie James, of course, who was a great. He was at the same time.
Maxie was there, yeah.
Was there any thought that you might stay in Melbourne? Did you enjoy living in Melbourne and perhaps want to play for another side?
No, not really. No. It was either Sydney or the bush, like that.
Right.
Well, no, we weren't going to move to Sydney. So.
Okay.
But on that, when the guys moved to Sydney, Roundy and Tony Mood and all the boys are telling me, so you get up to Sydney, we'll get you a job, and you can settle in. So they arrived in Sydney, and team managers met them at the airport, gave them a phone book, said they look for a job.
Really?
So how tough would it have been?
They were pioneers. So I didn't experience them living up there that first year. But they were training out of a tin shed in a mud heap with poor lighting, and it was real hard yards.
They actually did win a night premiership, didn't
That
they?
was 82 as well,
Yeah.
So that was against Collingwood, I think.
No, of course.
Yeah.
I think so, anyway. But
We had a bad trot. So it's 83, you come back to
83.
Come back.
Yeah.
And you literally link up with Woodville.
Yep. Back to Woodville, back to where it all started, and unfortunately, Malcolm Light and I didn't particularly get on very well.
Okay.
I didn't like the way he coached, and so I had 1 year there and then moved to West Torrens.
Okay. Am I right in saying that you wanted, and eventually, as you said, with the amalgamation to form the current Eagles, you're one of the few players who actually played for both clubs?
Well, I can go one better than that. They had a Woodville, West Torrens and North Adelaide past players last week. I played for all three clubs.
Actually, you would have too. So you're moving from group to group.
Yeah.
So a couple of years at Torrens?
Yeah, 3 at Torrens. In the 3rd year, I was in line to join the Fire Brigade, and so I finished up mid-season basically, and then went into the drill squad with the Fire Brigade, and then at the end of the year, got approached by North Adelaide. Do you want to come and have a kick out there? Ended up at North Adelaide.
Yeah, and what a magnificent year 87 was for you.
Yeah, well, it was an all-star team. They were a great side, and they'd lost the last 2 grand finals to Glenelg, so they were, keen to make amends. And when Glenelg made the grand final in '87, I was cacking myself.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, they just wanted to.
Off a couple of the 2 previous ones,
Yeah.
and then they're pretty physical type games, and then it's sort of a new thing for you, and also you'd never played the premiership side or the grand final.
I played in one losing elimination final in 14 years, and so I had no finals experience.
Was that against Nord?
Yep.
Oh, that was the
79.
The handball for Phil Malin.
Poor old Phil Malin got
That first 5 minutes.
elbow to the head.
Mm.
Yep. So I had no finals experience other than the second semi, which we won against Nord again. And as I said, we're playing Glenelg because I didn't want to play Glenelg. I thought they've got the wood on.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, the boys, they just wanted to play Glenelg.
Because they said, what a great year. You kick 111 goals, win the Kenny Farmer. The flag, of course, and A. Jarman wins the medal. And just tell us Rolls Royce midfield that they had the 2 Jarmans and Burton and guys like this.
Yeah, well, Andrew won the McGarry medal, but Daryl Hart was actually the favourite.
Oh.
So he was the rover, Andrew was the centreman, Darren would go in there as well. Mickey Redden and Michael Parsons were the ruckman. So you had a
Pretty impressive.
pretty A-grade ruck set up in the middle, and so
Was Wildy at half back?
he was in the back pocket.
Back pocket,
And he's a great mate of mine. I always said I used to hate playing on his arms and legs. He was quick. He would always get in the way. He was a really good backman, and unfortunately, he got injured just at the end of the season. Did a shoulder and missed the grand final. So.
Yeah.
And that was the game, of course, the Bays, the Stringer boys and a few others, renowned for sort of roughing up. But I think the late Michael Parsons took it upon himself that day to sort of even a few scores.
Yeah, well, I think Mickey Redden, there was a big fight at the first 5 minutes, and Mickey Redden's set the stringers straight, said, I'm coming for you, but Michael Parsons took over, and he really stood up and kicked 6 goals, and got them Jack Odie medal, and
how'd you go yourself, John? You get a few?
got 5.
Pretty handy in a grand final.
Yeah, a couple of Luke Roberts type kicks in there as well.
How did you go with obviously coming back from the VFL and the physicality and stuff? What about all that stuff? You got involved with that sort of stuff, as you said, with the big blues, or you just thought, I'm here to play footy?
Well, I was on Jim West, who also ended up at the Swans. So the big fight started, and we're at full forward, and I'm running in, and he's giving me a belt under the back of the ear, and so then I'm behind him, so I chased him, I got him back, don't worry. So yes, I got involved.
Okay, so 88, it's your second year in North Adelaide, but of course they'd gone to the world so many times they finally achieved it. They drop off a bit. Yeah,
look, we were going all right probably halfway through the season, then the second half was really ordinary. Finished 6th, I think. I think it was just they got that premiership, and I think there was just that relief and a bit of a letdown, dropped off a little bit, and then they sort of came back again next 2 or 3 years. Unfortunately, had that horrible year with the 1 goal only kicked, and then they won the big one with the fights against Westies.
Yeah, 91.
Yeah.
Hey, you probably saw this if I've got the right game. Andrew Jarman had the boys on the front bar that week. No, talking about the best goal ever, and Andrew Jarman, the one with Darren Jarman's running.
Oh yes.
And was that in an 87 grand?
Yeah, that was in the grand final. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, pulling out his party tricks. I reckon he was having the shot for goal because he was absolute freak around goals.
They had that on the front bar.
Yeah,
That was
that's
on the
right.
front
Yeah,
bar.
yeah, it's the one he picked as the best.
Yeah.
But he did say that he was actually trying to kick it to me, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
How did you find North Adelaide, like, as you said, having the experience at clubs like Woodville and West Torrens, which have been, hadn't had a lot of success for a long time as far as playing finals, and then going to a club like North Adelaide, just their professionalism and also the coaching, Mickey Noonan.
Oh yeah, Mickey Noonan.
Ran a pretty good ship.
Well, I've always said Mickey Noonan was by far the best coach I had.
Really?
He could read your mind, basically. If you got in the bad books or you were in a bit of a hole or whatever, he took you down the cake shop. I got dragged down the cake shop and he sat me down and he said, "This is what's going on with you." And I went, "Shippers, that's right." So it was very good. Like, he come out of his playing career from Jack Oatey's.
Yes. And he went to Huddle.
Yeah. So he was great. He was really good. And the club, they were. The club was great, but the players in particular, they being close and were hungry, so the environment was there, and the players were unreal. They were fantastic. And Noonan said, "Look, I want skilled players," which is funny because I wasn't particularly skilled, but
You just get on the end of it.
well, I'll tell you how unskilled I was when I first went to South Melbourne. I'm training, and I'm not the greatest trainer. I could take a good grab and pop through a goal from 35, 40 metres or whatever, but on the track I wasn't that great. So they hadn't got my clearance, and it's coming up, there's only 2 games to go before the season started. And so they played me under an alias,
South Melbourne.
Robert Swan. Anyway, I took a few marks and we won by 3 points. And so so then they went and got my clearance. So they wanted to see
Try before you buy.
Yeah, they wanted to see if I could play.
Robert Swan.
Only Robert Swan that actually does appear in South Melbourne records. Swan, pre-season job. Hey, the facts don't lie. The amount of goals you kicked and everything. Training as a specialist forward, you used to spend time, a designated period of training, practicing your craft. What I'm getting at, it must frustrate you as a great goal kicker to see the modern game and the amount of goals that professional footballers miss from 30 yards out. Obviously, they don't pay a lot of detail into their skill of goal kicking.
Well, as I said earlier, I was up in Sydney only 2 weeks ago. Caught up with a few players and with Barry Round, the 81 Brownlow medalist. And he was telling me that each training session, they're only allowed to have a certain amount of kicks. Like it might be 100 kicks. You don't want to be wearing out your body. This happens in the Swans anyway. They can only do a certain amount of repetitive exercise. So by the time they've done their training and done 90 kicks, they can only have 10 shots for goal at the end of the training session.
Who's counting the kicks?
Well, they probably have got someone there.
Probably have.
In this day and age, they probably have.
Dartfish boys there taking Jade and Jay in the stand. Well, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't know if that's all clubs, but that's apparently what goes on at the Swans.
So what about back in your day? You had shots at goals?
We always, after training, have shots for goal, and if you've got to go out early and have shots. Ian Stewart, when I first went over there, and he was training me as a full forward rather than the forward pocket, they'd have the circle work, and then I'd have to lead out from full forward, flat out, and they'd try and put it in front of me. So that was, for me in particular, that was a really handy drill to do.
So, another one on your CV, All Australian, 1980.
Yep.
So obviously you were over playing at South Melbourne, you come
Yep.
back play state footy.
Yeah.
Carnival, was it? Or?
Yeah, it was in Adelaide, and it was, I think, in October. It was after the final series, which was a bad thing for me because we didn't play in the final at South Melbourne, and I'd come back to Adelaide. Of course, I'm out at the Peckers Disco.
Night before.
Not the night before, but
habits don't change.
so my fitness wasn't great. So I think I was starting to tire a bit in the second half of the game against Victoria. But yeah. So we played 2 games. I think Saturday and Monday, and all Australians. It was nice to have on the CV.
Oh, absolutely. You said obviously your goal kicking feat, so you mentioned that you started off as a defender and then you played a bit as a ruck rover or follower. What was your favourite position?
Oh, absolutely on the ball.
Yeah, so you run around.
Yeah, like modern day, look like everyone that gets any recognition to a non-baller. But my game was around fitness when I was an on-baller and marking, and I used to love it. I just, can I be a follower every season? But not to be.
And of course, obviously, one of the great features of your game, mate, was as we mentioned before on the film clip up there, Kazali, you're up there as the flying swan with the long flying locks, mate. So obviously taking a hanger, if the opportunity arose, you were up there.
Well, everyone had long flying locks in those days and tight shorts.
Put the sock in them.
Maybe.
Memories of the Lakeside Oval. How much we touched on before South Melbourne leaving. I remember there was the protests and everything from the members to say keep South at South campaign and everything because a lot of the old diehards. And I noticed this year, you're probably aware of it, that this year because it's the 40-year anniversary of them moving up there, that all the home games they play in Melbourne, away games in Melbourne this year, they're wearing the South Melbourne strip. Yeah,
so we've actually got our 40-year reunion in 2 weeks. So I better get up there for that. Lake Oval, they're a bit like West Torrens. They just couldn't, they didn't have money behind them, always struggling for dollars, and that's how they ended up becoming the Sydney Swans, because VFL just got sick of bailing them out and said, no, I think it was Alan Aylett that decided that we've got to take this game national. Sydney's the first obvious choice, and the Swannies are, they didn't have a Lindsay Fox like St Kilda.
No.
So St Kilda were always struggling. Lindsay Fox would chuck another million in and they'd be all right. But the Swannies, but they have great loyal supporters.
Well, seen as a working man's club?
Yeah. And in fact, when I went over I'm trying to think what year it was, 2006, I think it might have been, West Coast and Swans. Yeah. Just hit home to me when I caught the tram in from, I think, Williamstown. Saw all the diehard Swannies, and these people were 70, 80 years old people, and they'd only just seen their first premiership in their lifetime. Yeah. So that's why I was so happy for Melbourne to win last year and the Bulldogs years before that. Yeah,
good to see a club. It must have been the romance of the place, because as you said, wandering around there as a new chum from South Australia, you look back and, because what you're referring to, 1933 was their last flag before obviously the Sydney Swans success, but some of the great names there, Laurie Nash, Bob Pratt, these sort of guys, and of course the great man Bobby Skilton.
Oh yes.
He played in one final, I think, under 1970. As you said, the Swans were a side that just couldn't get there.
Yeah, and Bobby Skilton was around the club a lot. He was involved in some aspect of it there. I remember he was always at the club working there and doing things. So great man, and he's still much loved at the club, and was involved. Although I haven't been up to Sydney to see it, but I know that he has been heavily involved in the Sydney side of things too. So
it's great to see that, and I think another similar character with his former club, of course, the great Kevin Murray, is sort of held in high regard with the Lions, because obviously their identity's gone north. But the Chimp and also Kevin Murray, they're still looked upon as icons of remove clubs to another area.
Yeah, well, that they were heroes, absolute heroes, and probably even more so than the modern day footballer. The Bob Skilton stood out there with all his Brownlows and his courage, and same with Kevin Murray. So
that famous footage of him, the old days of TV ringside on the Monday night or something, or Tuesday night, and he'd won the Brownlow, and they actually got him along to the fight night, and they introduced him, they got him in the ring, in between bouts, and there's the new Brownlow medalist. The shiners that looked like he'd been in the bout before, and just the attention he used to cop.
Yeah, well, of course I didn't witness any of that.
No,
but, I did. I know the photo. I've seen the photo. Yeah, amazing. really is. And you're amazing with your football knowledge.
Don't worry, John. We don't. You agree to come on here.
Spend a lot of time reading stuff.
Yeah.
You're on the Saturday morning sports brief with Pistols and our very special guest, John Roberts. Very interesting show so far.
You want to go tune?
You want to go to tune, boys?
You want to go to tune?
Give people a bit of
water,
time.
John?
Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, all right, then we've got the selection here.
It's like
So we've got Robbie.
Let's go. Let's have a look at this. Let's go. I will surprise you all.
Right, you can keep going. We got some viewers on here, so. Yeah.
I don't know, it sounds like I'm... Is that the headphones or am I sounding really blocked up?
Ah, it's it.
Is it?
If you're still on the live stream, we've got John Roberts here. Joined us on the Saturday morning sports brief. We're just taking a bit of a break at the moment. But if you want to take a drink of water,
Yeah.
John,
That just spoke too much my life.
Oh, the other week it would have
Yeah,
been
that was
right
sweet.
over at Sydney.
And the other thing too, John, is we never forget anything you say.
Well, that's cool. I've helped them.
Eh?
I bit my tongue a couple of times. There's a couple of stories I could have told. That girl I didn't.
No, it's great. It's great to hear about old times and history. They get a good crowd there today too, won't they? They always do it, the sponsors do.
Yeah. They've got a lot of sponsors too. They do very well.
That's why they're good on the field, because
Yeah.
they're good off the field.
Yeah,
They look after them too.
They do, you know, and they have life members' days and stuff.
yeah, that was good too.
Yeah.
Well, we'll read the cheat notes here, see what you've got coming up.
No, number 16 you wore.
He does his research.
Woodville.
Yeah.
Number 10 for the
Swannies.
Swannies. I was trying to think of who wore number 10.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, I was trying. I thought it was Rory National Bob. So there you go.
Yeah,
You have a great goal kicker.
yeah. Mate of mine was in the Muttley.
Yes,
that was the bloke that lived at that converted me to Woodville.
Yeah, it's mentioned here in this story. This was one that you did back
Oh,
30 years ago.
he said he'll kick the number on his back.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, he did too. Ah.
minute left. We'll be back shortly.
Who's Hahndorf playing today?
Honkers.
Honkers.
Did you?
Top fixers.
Daniel's got a bit of a superstition with his
Oh, yeah, we'll ask him.
underwear.
Yeah, I'll
Do
bring
you-
it up.
we'll
I'll
just-
bring it
Yeah.
up.
Have you
Did
heard that?
you hear that one?
Yeah, I did hear he told that story. No, I don't. I don't have that suspicion.
But we'll have to bring it up.
Yeah, no.
Boom, boom. 30 seconds, boys.
Alright. Coming back shortly.
You right there, Goldie? You need a kip or?
No, I'm all right. Nice couch for it.
You going Pistols? 5 seconds.
You
mate.
bring us back, Rob.
Me?
Yeah. Just say what it is.
Well, that was You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. And we got the great John Roberts with us here on the Adelaide Saturday morning sports brief. And Pistols is just about to interrogate, where you'll be able to see it all on the podcast
Live stream as well.
live stream as well.
As I said at the top of the show, it's great for you to join us, John, because it's only fair that you got the right of reply, because we had your little say a couple of weeks ago. Daniel, who was very good the midweek on the Huddle, and he was telling us about some of his superstitions. So I just wonder if the jocks are still holding together. He's telling us he wears the same pair of jocks as for years. They'd be probably tatters now. So what about your good self? Any superstitions you had or mannerisms that you went through?
Not really. I like to run out last, and that was probably something I had from the Woodville cheer squad days when Malcolm Blight was playing for Woodville. He always used to run out last.
Even on your 100th game? Or milestone?
Yeah, I can't remember. Maybe I did lead it out, but that was just one little thing I used to do. I used to have the same breakfast every game, which used to be eggs on toast, and then the dietitian said no, eggs are no good. You've got to have spaghetti. So then we changed to spaghetti, but with extra cheese.
Is that how it came about in the cans?
Hey, that's a different era when you look at all the dietitians they have around that sort of stuff. Back in your day, even in the VFL, which was sort of a bit more professional compared to SNFL, I suppose. But our times have changed, and weights training, the training regime. What was it back then for you? 2 nights a week or 3?
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday night, and then Sunday morning recovery. Which
After the Pickers disco?
Well, no, that was Thursday night. It was Sam's on Saturday night.
Sam's,
yeah,
good, right, well.
Yeah. Been there a few times.
Bay disco Sunday night.
Yeah, Sunday night.
do the circuit.
Anyway, no, that was Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Sunday was recovery, which tended to turn into not a recovery. You go and have a beer afterwards.
Yeah.
And you do a few weights, not a lot. And same off season, plenty of running.
Yeah.
So, but dietitians, I've got to give Woodville credit. No other club had dietitians like West Torrens. I don't even think North Adelaide or the Swans had a dietitian at that time. They had the first ones with the dancing girls, the Peckerettes. So there you go.
The Peckerettes.
Yeah.
The Peckerettes. Get around the Peckerettes.
And then you went to the Swans and they had the Swanettes, didn't they?
No, I don't think they did. I don't reckon.
Yeah, early days.
Did they?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
Or was that Eccleston days?
Yeah.
I think that was after.
Yeah.
I reckon Woodville were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
Peckerettes. What, were you in charge of the selection committee at the Pickers disco? Or?
No, they didn't have too many to select from, I don't think. Woodville didn't have many supporters.
Hey, you touched on it briefly, John, the fact that you played for the 2 clubs that emerged in, 1991. And ironically, they played each other for the last time in that last minor round at Adelaide Oval, I remember. Was it a good thing? Had to happen?
Well, at the time, because I wasn't a member,
Yeah.
I would have voted against it. Apparently there was only a handful of Woodville people that did vote against it, so they made a compelling story. But to me, I mentioned before, Woodville was financial.
Yeah.
West Torrens weren't. Why did they merge? I mean, I couldn't see the reason behind it. But anyway, smarter people than me had worked out what was going on, and they've turned out to be successful. So.
And it must have been a very proud moment for you to see your son, obviously Daniel, play league football for, a club which was, you were a foundation member of both the previous clubs.
Yep. And Daniel, he only played there the 1 year really, and he was second ruck to Brad Dabrowski, who was a state ruckman.
Yeah.
And Ronnie Fuller, a great mate of mine, was coaching, and I never say anything to any of the coaches ever with the kids. But he was hard done by because he only used to get 7 minutes a quarter, and he would do a lot in that time. And he could have played a lot of league footy, but if you know Daniel, he wasn't going to play 7 minutes a quarter for too long. So at the end of the year, he moved on. The other 2 boys, they both went down to the Eagles and played in the junior grades as well. So they all had a crack.
No, you must be proud of what they've achieved. Particularly as we get on to more, your involvement, obviously, an ardent follower of your boys, who, of course, Hahndorf Football Club. 2015, mate. 2 of them, there were 3 of them played, which was fantastic.
Played,
but 2 of them outstanding efforts, because Matthew in the ruck in the last quarter playing your Adelaide, and of course the big man broke his ankle, so he tells us, and they put him up forward, and he takes 2 of the big John Roberts style hangers and kicks 2 vital goals, and Hahndorf win their first flag for a long time after being bottom the year before.
Well, that's right. The year before everyone decided to go overseas.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, they weren't good enough to go top that year. But yeah, look, Matt was my best on ground in the grand final. He was fantastic. Daniel, I think, actually twinged a hammy. I think was the actual injury.
Oh, he told us he broke his ankle.
He broke his ankle next year. But He took those 2 hangers in the last quarter, and Luke played his part as well. In fact, I reckon the last 2 goals, the passages where the 3 boys were involved. And I'll tell you what, I had a tear in the eye after that. Oh, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That was the best premiership was the first one.
Yeah.
I've got one. Is it true, John, that you have the some of the after premiership celebrations at your house? Is that right? Or
Yeah,
tell us about
I
that.
used to have a house at Erbray with a pool and a spa and a big outdoor area. And
Lady Fairfax style.
That's
Yeah,
where you
yeah.
got the idea.
anyway, so I'd put on a barbecue. So I'll put a barbecue on for you guys on a Sunday because Hahndorf Footy Club would have had enough of them by lunchtime
Yeah,
on Sunday. Get them out of here. So they'd all come down and they're all well behaved and they'd have a barbie and then move on for the nightclubs or whatever on the Sunday night. But so I put on a sausage, sizzle and beers on the Sunday, and James Sapati said, "What? We only get sausages." So the next year I had to put on steak sandwiches. Yeah, but they were great days. But that was I think we only missed. Well, last year was the first year they didn't do it, so because I moved.
Yeah. Just Hahndorf Footy Club, we're talking off air how they're successful on the field, we all know that, but off the field as well, and obviously heading down towards a bit of a function this afternoon, but just the way they do things, they do it very well, don't they?
Well, absolutely. I mean, they've got so many volunteers and people there that just love the club and put in hour after hour. It really is an amazing club, and I mean, I actually encourage my boys to go back to Hahndorf, or Dangle in particular, to go back and when Matt was playing junior football, always was going to come back to Hahndorf. And their junior development program, I think, is the key to their success, coupled with the volunteers and the people they've got in the administration, because look around the Oval and have a look at how many sponsor signs there are, and then have a look at another club. I mean, Hahndorf is miles ahead.
Another fantastic thing, we did the Call to Wild a couple of weeks ago, and we're just remarking, as you said, that the junior development, and also the family situation, because you have the Roberts running around, the Sanders, Parker Bowers,
Gribbles.
the Gribbles.
Leaks.
I said to Joel yesterday, he was working at Olympic Party Hire, Matty's business, and I had a crack at him. I said, "Mate, you blokes have got to calm down a bit." So I was trying to push for a Roberts corner at the club, and the Parker Boys are going to be trying to take that corner.
Hey, just tell us about, give us a plug, the Party Hire mob, how that's going.
Yeah, so
They've conquered the Book Boys situation, so they moved on. Another field.
Well, I can't claim fame for the Olympic Party Hire. That's Matthew's baby, and I think he was ordering his 20th vehicle last week. So he's got currently got 19 trucks and vans running.
So just for listeners and viewers, it's as you say, Party Hire. So any weddings, parties, anything. Kents,
marquees. Anyone from the hills, if you're looking to have a function, look up Matty, or there's plenty of people from the hills working there. A lot of Hahndorf people. But they've got marquees. They've got everything: tables, chairs.
So business has been all right. Was it affected by COVID, John?
I remember when COVID hit. I could see it coming. I'm saying about don't spend, stop spending, save your money, because it's going to hit. It's overseas. It's coming. Anyway. Don't quote me on these figures. Well, you will quote me.
Benny, turn that recorder off.
I think he had $60,000 in sales.
Wow.
The week before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And on the Monday, he had $100 in sales.
Yeah.
He had one popcorn machine going out. That the rest of all these orders spiked. So, Matt, to his credit, I dip my hat to him. He just works that business so hard. So he went into furniture removals whilst the COVID was on, because people were moving around the country.
Yeah, of course.
And he was driving around all over the country, driving trucks.
Yeah.
So he kept it going.
Yeah.
So he's a bit of a hard worker, because Daniel in the medical side of things. But what about Lukey? He's just come back from sunning himself on the Riviera, or what?
Yes, I wasn't very happy about that. I didn't. He didn't tell me till he was about to leave that he was going away for 6 weeks in the footy season. But he's in the fire brigade. He's been in there 18 months now, I reckon. And never going to be as good as his dad.
Nah, of course.
Yeah, 18 months, but he's also got Adelaide wine barrels, so he on sells wine barrels.
What was now? We had the great Ray Laddams on a couple of weeks ago on the Saturday Sports Brief, and we were talking about footy because the old I don't know, Legacy Cup games, because the police playing the Fireys and the military Air Force. So you would have had a pretty you played obviously pretty handy fire brigade teams back in the day.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, Ralphie Seward himself pre my one and only final up until 1987, playing for the fire brigade, which anyway. But yeah, no, that was, you played the police, it was always a win. We went over to Perth a couple of times to play. I can't even remember who we played, but we won. It was about day 4.
You must have found the equivalent of the Pecker's Disco over there somewhere. I forgot. In a bit of a haze. Hey, and also, of course, Commonwealth Games are on at the moment. I know you'd be enraptured with that. But the police fiery Olympics used to have back in the day. What was your expertise? The high jump or the ladder climbing contest?
Well, no, my first expedition was to Vancouver, and that would have been 12, 14 years ago. So I was no spring chicken. So I went in the dragon boats.
Really?
If you can just put down in your CV there, right down world champion
really?
dragon boat. Three times. Gold medalists in the dragon boats.
There you go.
Oh, well.
The man has got everything.
There's about 16 in the team.
What a great segue that was back to turn on. You ain't seen nothing, and here he is, the world dragon boat champion. Gold medalist. Where was that up there? Quebec River or something?
I don't even know where that was in some lake.
Yeah.
Then we retained the gold medal in New York because there was a
So it wouldn't pay for you to go?
No, you've got to raise your own money. So you go down to Bunnings, you'll see the World Police Barbecue.
Yeah.
Again,
okay, that's what they're doing.
And they used to do the Fire Brigade calendar. I don't know if they still do it.
Yeah.
Every 2 years, that was a big fundraiser.
How'd you go back in the day? You would have been all right, eh?
Oh, well, I was pushing to go in the
Mr. October?
They wouldn't have me.
That's amazing. World Police Fire Games, they have like darts and some obscure sports.
Lawn bowls. It's the second biggest games in the world, behind the Olympics.
Yeah. So they do actually have work-related things like climbing up the ladder or reeling the hose in, or
it's a conference.
I've got to tell you, they have some pretty hard events where you've got to go up towers and pull hose up, and I wouldn't do it; it's too hard. But the crazy Americans, they've got this like a hotted up Dodge Ute, and they have a ladder attached on the back, and it goes flying down a straight, comes up to like a crossover bridge, hits the skids. The ladder goes up, this bloke's like hanging on the ladder, he flies up, and up he goes, and they time it, and that's an event.
Sounds like...
And what's he land on?
He lands on the gangplank on the top.
Sounds like that, similar to that episode of Seinfeld where Kramer's on the fire truck, around at the back. Hey, just your career in the fire brigade, like any hairy moments for you?
Yeah, well, I remember the biggest fire at the time was the silos down at Port Adelaide. The gangway got hit by lightning, and for you guys that would know all this, that if you get a dust explosion in grain, any dust explosion, that would have flattened the port. So massive. Anyway, so we're the second truck there, and then the expert comes down, and the joint's burning, and they've got the ladder up, and the ladder goes up. It's probably 14 floors or wherever it is to the top of the silo, and there's a gap. It wasn't tall enough to go up, and they're calling for volunteers, and I'm sort of shuffling back, and then the expert says, if this goes up, it's going to flatten the port. Well, I couldn't go any further. There was a cyclone fence behind me.
So you were there?
No, I didn't.
No,
they got someone else. Yeah, I was too far to the back of the queue to get selected, you see. I
know a few fireys, and they always tell us how they saved the city, but it seems sometimes it's a bit of a cushy life, just, down at particularly Glen Osmond, which I think is the holiday resort that you went. Some of their mates who from the hills, particularly, who work down in the fire brigade, but sleep all day or whatever. But obviously, are times when it gets really serious and you've got to go in the amazing buildings and everything.
Look, I consider it the best job in the world. Absolutely loved every minute of, except down at the port there that day, and a couple of other occasions. But yeah, fantastic job. But look, you've got good and bad with it. I mean, you get dragged out of bed in the middle of the night. You know, you can sleep on station, of course, but from a dead sleep to run into a burning building when everyone's running out, it's not the greatest thing. And the other downside they've discovered in recent times is, of course, the cancer risk through the smoke is very high, and so now they've got presumptive legislation that if you get particular cancers in the fire brigade, it's acknowledged that that's through work. So that's the downside. I mean, so they're very careful now with the air sets and changing dirty smoke along clothes and so forth. So that's all being addressed.
It seems to be also the fire brigade seem to be pretty flexible in allowing, because the amount of blokes who perhaps back in the day you were, you know, ex-NFL footballers and were able to sort of get their shifts changed, I suppose, so they could play and train.
Well, you've got this what's called a standby, so you can swap a shift as long as you don't work more than 24 hours in a row.
Yes,
you can swap. So Lukey should be working today or tonight, or you can swap with someone, and he'll end up working tomorrow instead of that guy. So and also, I know the case where they swap a lot of blokes who probably do extra shifts in summer because they don't play cricket. You know, make up for their mates. That's right.
Looked after them. So fantastic. Well, there you go, Robbie. It's been absolutely fascinating. We knew it would be entertaining to have
that's part one.
A great man on.
That's part one.
And so we never get enough of you because we've always been sort of held in by time restraints. When we talk to you on a Saturday, they called.
I've got one.
Yes,
most respected or opponents or players you've played with along the journey.
Well, I mean, there was some great backmen in South Australia, but I just remember playing against Bruce Dool at Princess Park at Carlton, and I couldn't get a kick on him. You know, the ball is just like a magnet to him. Anyway, this dog runs onto the ground, and we're all trying to get the dog. And Bruce Dool just flicks his finger, and the dog runs up to him, and off it goes. So he just, I don't know, he had something special going on there, or Brucey.
Hey, just as a follow-up, Benny's question, how was it your fair football yourself? You go across there and obviously, that's where you were back in the days, you'd watch the winners or the replays and you see some of these superstars, just mentioned a couple of them there, Brucey Dool and Barry Round who you played with, some of these guys. Was there a feeling?
Was surreal?
Surreal? Also, do I belong here? But you certainly did, but you know what I mean?
I exactly how I felt. Like in my first game, I mentioned, you know, in the first half of Heavy Legs, and going, that's Mancurvis, and I'm on Sammy Newman, and then I line up on Terry Danaher, Gary Malarkey, David Dench, Jeff Southby. They were all playing full back. So unbelievable.
And I suppose your reputation had sort of preceded you. Here's a guy who's kicked a lot of goals, 16 in a game. He must be all right. So you virtually drew some of the good defenders on this young bloke from South Australia.
Well, I think initially I probably didn't in that regard, but as I had a bit of success, I started to get the pictures of the Dools. So that probably quieted me down a little bit, but.
Was the situation also coming from South Australia? Because I think look at the era of Cornsey went over because Rick Davies, Russ Ebert. So South Australia, that inferiority complex that the Victorians give us, and that was sort of once you started proving, we are good in South Australia.
Yeah, well, so Blight and Huppets, McKellar, the Woodville boys, had pretty good success. Blight obviously being the standout. And then I think the year I went over, there's Phil Malin and Andy Bennett went over at the same time. Because Phil did very well, played the premierships. And then I reckon the next year, Davies, Corns and Ebert went over. I mean, Russell got
a lot of people
flying in, flying
out.
And then the floodgates opened. I mean,
the Claytons, the Bradleys, the Motleys.
Yeah, we had that golden era.
Hey, when you look back, just some of those names quickly you mentioned there, John, Woodville, if you were to pick the best side Woodville ever picked on the park, as you mentioned, through the greats there, McKellar, Blight, up, it's not a bad first rank. No doubt your good self would be there, Phil Mayland, Ralphie Sewer.
There's Frankie Stamper, I mean, there's Lindsay Heaven. There was absolute champions in the club, and it was just a pity that we couldn't get
Put
them
them
all
all
together
together.
and hang on to them. I mean, they used to drift down, I suppose, through lack of success.
Yeah.
If they could have had some more
Vicky
success.
was another one.
Yeah. So anyway, but I remember you talk about Port Adelaide and Woodville and the little differences. We played down at Port Adelaide this day, and they've lost. We beat them, and we go up to the games up to the rooms
Is that the
afterwards.
Buff Tyrrell game?
No, actually, it was when I was playing West Torrens. Sorry, no, I do remember that very well. But anyway, so we beat Port Adelaide at Alberton, and Benny Harris was on the bench for Port Adelaide,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
We go upstairs or into the club rooms, and they pull down the banner, and they sing the club song, and and then they go into the awards for the players, the things that the supporters are giving to the players they've lost. Benny Harris got $250. He was on the bench. He gets more than I got paid playing for Torrens.
As I said, it's all built around the culture of a club, and as we
Yes.
discussed before, Hahndorf, certainly the culture which you're heading off to the south.
Just not a quick one. Next generation, Roberts, Penn? Is that how
Well, Penny reckons he's as tall as me, so I've sacrificed seeing him today to be here.
thank
So there you go.
Sorry,
But,
Pete.
well, now he's got a
He'll be able to watch the replay.
He'll be playing for St Peter's now in the underage teams, but he's coming along. He's at the disadvantage, of course, he had a few years in America.
Yep.
But yeah, we're hopeful that he plays out at the juniors out at Hahndorf on most occasions when he can. He's not got school commitments, so yeah, he's a chance. And if I can get these boys to fire up with some more, grandchildren,
Yeah.
it'd be nice to. There might be a hope. But,
Have you got a granddaughter?
No. I've got one grandson. I've got 3 sons and 1 grandson. Poor effort, really.
Come on, boys, lift your game.
Hey, before we let you go, one thing that's always not worried us, but queried us here on the quarter while we record the game. So the goal kicking ability of the Roberts siblings, being such a great goal kicker yourself, bit of a dead-eye dick, was it? 16-3, that's pretty good effort. Did you have a hand in teaching them how to kick?
Obviously not a lot.
One in particular.
But Luke, a few years ago, I got him out, and Mickey Noonan said to me when I had one of my cake shop visits, just walk in, and just like a golf swing, nice and smooth,
Yep.
straight leg, line everything up, and away she goes. And so I did this with Luke, and Cooper Nightcamp's another one that's exactly the same. Drops the ball crooked, Luke throws his leg. So I went through all this with Luke, and he's playing full 40. He's kicked 17 goals straight. He had a purple patch, 2 weeks.
Yes.
2 weeks, kicked 17 straight. Went into the finals. He kicks a point. Craig Smith sends out the runner and says, "What's this bloody walking in thing? Go back to your running."
Oh, really?
And that was, and Luke will say, "Can we say shit on this program?"
Yes.
I said it went to shit. So every now and again I pull him back in and we try and line him up, but he's due for another little.
It's just seeing some of the techniques of full forwards. I mean, look at Ben Brown, he's got to run up from halfway down the aisle, isn't he? I think he'd be buggered by the time he gets there.
Well, yeah, but Luke does a big run up.
Yeah.
When he shouldn't.
Yeah.
He needs to be retrained, I think, really. Some people it works for, some it doesn't. If you're going to drop the ball from a high position or crookedly, you need to walk in. You don't get any extra distance.
Remember that, Pistols, when we're going for goal next, mate.
We will.
Hey,
We will.
it's not about the ball drop. It's about walking in.
It's
Well,
about
it
walking.
is about the ball drop.
And looking good, and certainly this bloke did back in the day with the long flowing locks and the high leaps and the 16 goals in a game. I said a world record, mate, never be beaten. Thanks very much, mate, for your time here on the
Thanks,
Saturday
Sean.
Sport.
Thanks,
It's
Sean.
been fantastic.
Fantastic.
All the best to. We don't have to wish them the best because we know they're good Hahndorf for the rest of the season, mate. And the Roberts boys that unfortunately Matt not playing, business commitments.
We'd love to have him
Yeah.
play, but he's just too committed with his business.
Yeah, fair enough. But good chance it could have 2 of them. What would that be, Benny? 5 in a row?
Oh yeah, just on that. We'll keep. What's the over 500 plus games, 16 premierships, life membership? You must
There's
be proud of that.
16 premierships between them, 500. That was at the life members,
Like, yeah.
67 games or
Yeah.
something like that
Yeah.
at that time. Fair effort, I suppose.
Yeah.
That's why I reckon Robert's Corner, eh?
Yeah,
Robert
Yeah.
Hahndorf.
Well, I tell you, there's a very special corner in the SANFL, probably down at Adelaide Oval. 4 people have kicked 16 goals, over 15 goals in a game of football. Rob,
Yeah.
I guess.
I read that there before, mate, so I'd say I'm cheating. I've got a shit
Yeah,
memory.
well, here they are. Some of these great names.
They are. They're
Takes out.
Phyllis?
Ken
Phyllis?
Farmer.
Ready?
No. Ken Farmer, Bruce Schultz from Nord.
Yep.
Timmy Evans was the last one.
Timmy Evans.
And of course the great man sitting next to us, John Roberts.
I'm going to say there's 5 with us, Fred Phillips.
Yeah, I reckon.
Fred Phillips?
I reckon he kicked 19.
That
or
day
whatever.
they kicked 49 against
Yeah,
Centrals.
yeah.
Oh, well, I'll just have to go back to the.
Come on,
It's got it
mate.
checked here that said there was only
No.
4 of them.
No,
But,
I reckon there's...
anyway, we'll,
No.
Hang on, here we go.
we'll
Yeah,
stand
it
corrected
says
on
here,
the-
mate. Highlight
on
of
the
the night was a
Yeah, the day when they belted Centrals.
Yeah,
49 goals.
49 goals or something.
Yeah, back in the day.
I reckon we got 18 or 19.
Glenelg's Phyllis kicked 18 against Centrals in 75. John kicked his 16 against
Well, there's
Centrals.
5 there.
Where are we? Farmer kicked 23
Yeah,
for
23.
North.
He had a good day.
Must be playing Callington that day.
And Schultz bagged 19 for North. Not
Great
bad.
achievement. That's it.
Well done.
Never been broken. Eh? And I think
Apparently
Rico got close to it. He kicked 15 at footy park. But,
Well, that's one I got on Rick.
yeah,
That's about it.
that's it. Fantastic. All right, John, as we say,
Thanks,
thank you
John.
very much for coming in, and all the best to you and Hahndorf for the rest of the year. Don't forget, this afternoon, the Call of the Wild will be live on 88.9 FM. Blackwood taking on
Dan,
Bremer, so
fifth
big
spot.
game to decide fifth spot. While you're here, mate, who do you tip?
Oh, Dan and who?
And Blackwood. Bear in mind, Blackwood
Oh.
beat Hahndorf.
Oh,
This year.
And the grand
Sure.
final is at Nan
And the grand final
Yes,
there.
the grand final.
What do you think about that, John?
at the
Well,
Coliseum.
What if Dan's in the grand final?
No, it'll be shifted.
Well,
Well,
you would pick that one.
Country divisions at
shifted to
Mansfield.
Bridgewater.
I'll go with Darcy's mob.
Ah, yes, Das, yes.
Yeah.
That was a great full forward too.
Yeah, he was. And beautiful kick too.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
didn't have to walk in.
No, he did.
No,
As we might use it at Savo.
Yeah.
And don't forget the Huddle. We'll be back on Wednesday night with the Huddle. And also the Sports Brief next Saturday. Another big special
mate,
guest
we're
will be
plucking
coming
them.
in. We're bringing the big ones
bringing
towards the
the
end of the
big
season.
ones.
So another man.
Someone I think who won also in their first game of AFL.
Yes,
Yes.
did indeed. And yes, you're quite right. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, John Roberts, thanks for being with us. Robbie Sherwood, Benny Goldfinch, Jeff Pistola signing off. Keep on chasing your goals. See you next time.